Tilly was our third child. She was a really nice surprise. She was born on the 24th of January 2022. Everything went fine with the pregnancy. We had no concerns whatsoever. It was a planned caesarean.
But then when she was born, she failed a hearing test in hospital. They told us not to worry about it because it can be quite normal with C-section babies because of fluids in the ear. And also what made me not worry about it at all was there was a baby opposite me on the ward who also failed the test. So I just thought, that's fine, it's normal. So they sent us to come along like 2 weeks later to the Children's Hospital to get tested again. I went alone with Tilly because we just thought, get her tested and it'll all be fine. I was not expecting them to tell me that she'd failed again.
We were then referred to the children's audiologists in the University Hospital of Wales, and they undertook some tests on Tilly, and she was diagnosed as having profound hearing loss.
I just remember the feeling as she was still being tested and they were trying to get the results and get readings from her. There was like a sinking feeling. I just felt really just in shock and just really, really sad. I remember crying, and I was wearing a mask as well because this was still sort of the time of COVID and things. So I just remember having tears trickling down my face and being on my own and just feeling like I couldn't breathe, and it was such a weird feeling. And then so I rang Chris, my husband, straight away and told him what they'd said.
When I picked my mum up from the hospital and I sort of saw her crying, and I asked her what's wrong, and she said that Tilly's deaf, and I was nearly crying my eyes out because I've never had a sibling that had a disability or cannot hear.
Of course, when we found out Tilly was deaf, we were surprised. Everyone wants their child to have every opportunity in life, and we started to think how it was going to impact on her life and how is it going to impact on the family.
There's a feeling of, it was just sadness that, my two other children could hear everything that I was saying to them. And I think the early days, I think I was really upset for quite a few days in the beginning. And I just kept thinking, she can't hear me sing to her to try and soothe her, or, just little things like that you take for granted as a parent.
We didn't know sign language. We don't know anyone that's deaf. And we just didn't know what life was going to look like for Tilly.
When she was born and we were waiting to go back for the second lot of tests, during that period of time, I did notice that she wasn't sort of startling, because newborn babies startle quite easily at loud noises, but Tilly didn't do that. I can remember Chris coughed or something really loud, and he was holding her and she just didn't move at all. So I just started to wonder, even before we'd gone back for the second lot of tests, whether there was something not right. I didn't want to believe it, and I just thought, maybe she's just a calm baby. So there were a couple of signs.
We were told very early on, due to her poor hearing, that it was very likely that hearing aids wouldn't help her and that she would need cochlear implants. There were lots of tests over the duration of about 8 or 9 months, and the decision was made that we were going to go ahead with the cochlear implants.
I mean, I can't actually remember. I think I must have been upset again at that time, because in between those appointments there was a time where I was just really hoping that maybe she had something in her ear or fluids, or but when they actually said that there's just no hearing there, I was clinging to some sort of hope at that time, and then for them just to say no, they never used the word deaf. I think they always said it was profound hearing loss. So yeah, it was difficult. It was really difficult. And Chris, my husband, was always sort of more positive from the beginning. and just said, you know, it'll be fine, we'll figure it out.
As a parent, she's just worried about her in later life. How is she going to manage life without hearing? How is she going to communicate with the world? I'm very lucky my employer put me on a level 1 British Sign Language course. But although I was trained to a really basic level, my family weren't. And it worried me how Tilly would get on with communicating with the world.
Her being deaf, it has been a big shock, but we're a year into it now. She's just not long turned 1, and they referred her straight away to the cochlear implant team because they talked about hearing aids. There was all sorts of conversations being had about hearing aids, but they did tell us from the beginning that she probably wouldn't benefit at all from those. So again, it was difficult because I remember thinking, okay, so she can just wear hearing aids, and then straight away they said, well, no, they probably won't work for her. So that was confusing because you think hearing aids would do the job, but that wasn't an option for Tilly. But we still had to try them. So that was a difficult journey as well with the hearing aids. And then we've just been back and forth to see people about the cochlear implants. They've all been amazing. She has a teacher of the deaf that comes to see her at home. So the support that we've had from the hospital has been really, really good, and it's helped a lot with getting through it all. So now we're at the point where Tilly's got a date for her surgery now to have cochlear implants. So it's going to be the 27th of February now, 2023. So we're just really excited, but really nervous as well because we don't really know what to expect. As much as they've told us, you know, how it's done and things like that, it's still going to be a long road from here, really, until she can start hearing.
There are a few things that were concerning to hear. The increased risk of meningitis, potential facial paralysis.
They need to tell you all the risks, and as a parent you do worry. And you know, I worry about how she's going to cope with the pain, but they've reassured us that she shouldn't be suffering too much with the pain afterwards. It's going to take about 3 to 4 weeks for her to heal and recover, until she gets her implant switched on, the cochlear implant switched on, so then she can start hearing. But yeah, we're of course nervous about the surgery, and it's not something they do. It's not something they do every day, you know, with the cochlears. But you know, we know they're just professionals, and she's in good hands. The cochlear implant surgery, you know, when we sort of first started to talk about that, they did say straight away, you know, it is like a major surgery, and that was obviously quite upsetting to think about. But you know, we've chosen this for Tilly, and hopefully it'll benefit her for the future. But she needs, you know, 2 cochlears, so it's a major surgery. They'll cut into the back of her ears, and insert. It's just like a circle metal implant that they put there, and it's got electrodes. It's quite, you know, it's so clever the way they do it. So that needs to be put into her head, and then she'll wear a processor on her ear and a magnet that goes then to connect to what's inside, and then that all sends messages to the brain, and then she needs to figure out what those sounds are when she's hearing. So yeah, it's very clever, but also quite scary as well.
I'm quite glad that she's able to have the operation, because I don't want her to be deaf, like, you know, forever.
So we're 2 days out now from Tilly's operation. It's been a really long process, and a lot of appointments, a lot of meetings with the hospital. Our last meeting, they were going through all the things that could go wrong. Was a bit nerve-wracking, to be honest, but I think we're just waiting for it to be over now.
So we're quite excited, but we're starting to get a bit nervous for her day of the surgery. We've got to get there for about 7:30 in the morning, and then we'll see like the anaesthetist, because she's got to go under and have general anaesthetic. And then they say that she should be the first one to go for surgery, so around 8:30, which will be good because she's got to be nil by mouth, so she's not allowed to eat or drink anything. So yeah, and then we just need to wait then for about, they say around 5 hours it could take to do both the ears, just an overnight stay, just so they can keep an eye on her. And then all going well, we should be home then the next day. She'll have an x-ray in the morning just to check that the cochlears have stayed in place, and then they should allow us home then to just recover.
And I think we've been advised that it's going to be 3 weeks before they turn the implants on. So it's going to be an anxious wait, really.
During the surgery, they will check that the electrodes are working, so we will know there and then whether the brain is receiving any information. It won't be until the switch on that we'll know exactly what she's hearing to begin with.
So it's the night before Tilly's surgery, and although we've been waiting for so long for this moment, now it's actually here. I just don't feel ready for it. But we're just going to go along now, get it done, and Tilly can start her life as a hearing person. So it's the morning of Tilly's surgery. It's about 6:15. We've been asked to ring the ward to make sure that there's a bed available for Tilly, and there is a bed. So Tilly will be going in about an hour and a half now for her surgery. So we got to the hospital around 7 to 8:30, and Tilly then went to the operation around 8:30. It was a long day. She came out at 2:30, but the staff were excellent. We were being messaged during the day. They kept us updated on, when her first implant had gone in and how that went.
It was obviously an anxious time for us from the get-go. Although I think, I think I felt quite calm. We did all right, didn't we? But then I took her down. Only one of us were able to go while she had the general anaesthetic, so I went with her, and she even coped with that really well. She didn't try and fight it too much. They just put the mask over her face to inhale the anaesthetic, and then she drifted off, and then I left and met Chris, and then we just had to sort of fill the time. But so she went into surgery about 8:30. Around 11 o'clock we got a call from someone from the cochlear implant team called Hannah, and she just updated us on how it was going. She'd spoken to the surgeon, and they informed her that they'd already completed one side, so that was about 2.5 hours in, and they'd already done the one side. And then by the time she came out, it was around 2 p.m. They brought her back to the ward. That was really difficult to see. When she came back, I got quite emotional and had a few tears, because she was just so out of it, and with the bandage it does sort of take your breath a little bit, and her face was a little swollen, which is normal. It took her quite a while to come around, and the night in the hospital I stayed with her only when her parents allowed to stay, and that night was quite difficult because she wasn't sleeping much. They said to expect her to be a little bit off food and drink because of the pain of where the incisions behind the ears. So if you try and eat as normal, you're opening your mouth, they said it was going to be a bit painful for her, so she wasn't really eating. And then we did come home the following afternoon. It was all fine, but then we had to take her back that evening because she was having fluids leaking from her nose because there was fluid around her ear. but they said just to keep an eye on the fluid coming from the nose, and I did feel like it was a bit too much. She had a little bit of a temperature, so we ended up going back in and staying for 2 further nights, which isn't really what happens. You know, sometimes there are complications. But then after that, when we came home on the Thursday, I think she slept all night that night for like 10 hours. Did. So she's been fine ever since then. She's really surprised us how well she's recovered.
So going into the operation, I was really concerned that Tilly was going to come out with lots of scars around her head shaved, looking quite unwell. But the day after her operation and the bandages came off, she had a small bruise above her eye, and she looked absolutely as she was before, a little bit of swelling, but the cuts were behind her ear, and actually, to be honest, I didn't even notice them. They're healing really well now, and they haven't bothered Tilly too much. She's doing really well.
Yeah, I was surprised too. We had to keep the bandage on for the whole night, so it was quite tough. That night she wasn't really bothering to touch it too much, and then they took it off first thing in the morning. They came around and took off the bandage, and yeah, it was nothing like I was expecting. You know, you could hardly really see the incisions. She recovered amazingly. We were obviously, you know, it was such an anxious time beforehand and during the surgery, but we were just relieved that it's over. She's had the implants, and we look forward to the switch on day when she'll hopefully start to hear some sounds.
The tough part is over. We're just ready for the switch on. It's just been 3 months now since Tilly switched on.
She's doing really well. She healed really well after the operation. She had her switch on. She reacted as they thought she would to the sounds. And so yeah, since then she's progressed so much within the last couple of months. She's not turned all the way up fully yet with her cochlears, but she's got good access to a range of different sounds. And she's just started to babble now and say different sounds, and we're just amazed by how she's come along and in progress. But it's the best decision we ever made.
Definitely.
So I think you know, it was definitely right for Tilly, and she's just doing amazing. And she'll even sit there sometimes and try and put her cochlea together, like with the battery and that. She picks up so much from us and watches what we're doing, and but yeah, so she's still got a fair way to go in terms of, you know, developing her speech and language, but we can be happier at the moment with how she is. She's just doing really, really well.
It was a long process, but I mean, it's well worth it. The future looks great for Tilly now. She's interacting with the world, and it's amazing, absolutely amazing how well she's done.
Yeah, to think of where we started, like, you know, going back to right to the beginning when, you know, her failing the test and them telling us that we needed to go back for more tests, and then it was confirmed. You know, I personally just think about how I felt at that time, and it was very, very an uncertain time. I think for us as a family and as parents, although they, you know, the hope was for her to have a cochlear implant operation, it was not kind of a given at that point. So to where we are today is just so unbelievable that, you know, she's made such a huge you know, improvement, and just how she's come along. And we're doing some sign language with her as well, and she picks up quite a lot of sign language. We're just really positive about her future. You know, there are going to be obstacles for her to overcome, but there's nothing at the moment we don't think she can't, you know, that she won't be able to do. People say everything will be okay, but you don't believe it at the time. But if I could go back and tell myself where we would be this time, you know, now, I would just be, you know, gobsmacked to think of where we are today. And I just think Tilly's future just looks amazing.